Zwolle in Olanda, dove ha iniziato. How many years ago did you start the Mandolin program about?
Oh, that's a long time ago. Let me see. I was about 18 years that I started teaching.
Okay.
You know, and started teaching as a guitar teacher, and then they asked me to teach the mandolin.
Which year was it?
Well,
roughly
speaking, it's about when I was about 20, so it was 75, I think.
Quindi nel 1975 è iniziato, molto importante. E Pietro Vimercati è una figura fondamentale per la storia del nostro strumento. È come avere Paganini, come avere Mauro Giuliani per la chitarra. È fondamentale. Forse ci possiamo paragonare quasi a Paganini, sicuramente superiamo Mauro Giuliani come importanza di carriera, come numeri proprio. Ha avuto una carriera molto lunga, nato nel 1779, morto nel 1850. Adesso facciamo parlare sicuramente il professor Timmerman e il ritmo della sua presentazione.
Thank you and the whole organization for inviting me. Thank you very much. It's an honor, real honor, because researching is in my blood. I did a lot about the mandolin in general, but also about Amberger mandolins, which is very dear to me. But the last years with COVID enabled me to sit at home and to stay at home and to sit behind the computer to write everything down. And I had about Vimercati, which all those years that I'm busy with the mandolin, Vimercati came by. But in a period which I was always told that the mandolin was less popular and almost without any players. But Vimercati somehow popped up every time. So I was curious and more curious, and I got so many newspaper articles that I thought, well, this is something very interesting. And then I was thinking about it, but of course I'm not an Italian. And I have to ask some things about Vimercato's family, on Carlo. And this was something Carlo knew. And it was very nice cooperation, we still have. So that's...
Sì, allora, tanto per riassumere, lui dice appunto che Pietro Vimercati entra nella storia della musica in un periodo molto importante, perché è il periodo dove il mandolino praticamente non ha niente, cioè dopo la fine del 1700 al 1800 al 1850 praticamente di mandolino tra repertorio, fonti non abbiamo praticamente nulla. Invece Vimercati va a riempire proprio questo periodo, quindi è una figura importantissima. Io mi sono anche occupato di Vimercati in quanto, essendo morto a Genova, io sono di Savona, allora ho cominciato delle ricerche, addirittura sono arrivato a scrivere la voce per l'enciclopedia più importante della musica, che è il New Grove Dictionary. Quindi mi sono occupato anch'io in passato e poi recentemente ho ripreso le ricerche, perché ovviamente con la digitalizzazione degli archivi si trovano molte più informazioni e quindi possiamo sapere molto di più. Il professor Timmerman dice che appunto lui, non essendo italiano, allora si rivolge a me magari per alcune informazioni, per alcuni approfondimenti sulle fonti in italiano.
Okay, and so I knew Carlo was busy with this research to the family, and here you see the family tree with the brothers and sisters. Different types he constructed because he inherited from his father, he inherited to make the instruments. So a lot of his instruments were actually made by himself. We don't know whether he played an instrument from his father, made by his father, but it's probably likely that in the beginning he did, but we don't know this for sure.
Questo è molto importante. Il padre di Pietro Vimercati era un importantissimo liutaio in contrada della dogana a Milano, proprio vicino al Duomo, dove era la contrada dei liutai, ed è un importantissimo liutaio di mandolini, Gaspare Vimercati. E lo stesso Pietro racconta di aver costruito lui stesso lo strumento che suona, per cui probabilmente lui, crescendo in questa liuteria, aveva anche imparato come costruire i mandolini. Non sappiamo nulla, purtroppo non è rimasto nulla per adesso, non abbiamo trovato il suo archivio, il suo mandolino, non sappiamo che strumento suonasse, però il professor Timmerman qualche idea ce l'ha. Un discorso importante che ha già aperto è quello della terminologia, perché lui chiamava il suo strumento mandola, però il termine più consueto era mandolino. Allora c'è comunque sempre stata una grandissima confusione nelle terminologie usate, poi lui girando tutta Europa, ovviamente anche nelle diverse lingue, quello della terminologia è un aspetto che va anche quello approfondito.
Vimercati, as I said, Pietro Vimercati, he made the instruments, or perfected the instrument himself. So besides giving concerts on the violin and on the mandola, he also created perfections on the existing instruments, so as you see on the left. Yes, but his father was also experimenting with instruments, and that you see in the middle. So for bigger sounds, it was important because the harpsichord was gradually making place for the pianoforte. And Vimercati is known to always have played with the piano, never with the harpsichord, so pianoforte. So he has to have power, and this is the creativity in the family by Gaspare, making these big mandolinos, is also visible in the work and in the creativity, the musicianship by Pietro Vimercati. So this is interesting. And
questo diciamo è un suggerimento del professor Timmerman di dire che Pietro, ma anche lo stesso Gaspare, probabilmente hanno costruito strumenti con una cassa più ampia per avere più suono, per poter competere con le nuove sonorità della musica strumentale. Il clavicembalo non c'era più, c'è il pianoforte che ha un suono molto più potente e persistente, e quindi Vimercati ha dovuto cercare un mezzo per poter competere con le nuove sonorità della musica classica.
The family was an artistic family. This is another type, because as a musicologist, a schooler, a researcher, you cannot say this is like this or this instrument in a somewhat louder instrument. And that means for cut strings, that means that you don't go deeper for the projection of tone, but you go wider. Yes, and that is what Gaspare Vimercati did here. So it's probably in this atmosphere, in this sphere, that Pietro Vimercati was growing up. So,
distrutto durante la seconda guerra mondiale ed è un mandolino costruito nella liuteria di Gaspare Vimercati a Milano, e già dice lui. E qua adesso vediamo il ritratto di Vimercati, che è uno di quei ritratti a stampa che loro portavano con sé per lasciare le dediche, e come cartoline, praticamente una cartolina di presentazione.
And thought in a different direction. He was playing the mandolin because some books write about Vimercati that he was playing together with Paganini. Paganini on the guitar and Vimercati on the mandolin. If this is true or not, I don't know, but they write it. But Vimercati was, with his brother Carlo, trained as a violinist, and they would both were appointed as violinist and this position is always apparent in Vimercati's life. He is always professor, Pietro Vimercati, professor of violino and director of the Scala in Milan. always.
Sì, tutta la sua carriera negli articoli di presentazione lui viene sempre presentato come professore di violino, concertista di mandola, di mandolino, insomma le varie terminologie che sono poi state utilizzate. E lui a 20 anni era violinista, primo violino alla Scala di Milano, quindi aveva una posizione molto importante e sicura sotto la direzione di Alessandro Rolla, che è stato il maestro che ha reso la Scala celebre in tutto il mondo. Quindi aveva una posizione molto importante, tuttavia decide a un certo momento di intraprendere la carriera di concertista, lascia Milano, lascia la Scala e comincia col suo mandolino ad andare in giro per l'Europa.
Pietro Vimercati decided not to go on with his profession of a professional violinist. About 1807, we see the first appearances in the newspaper, Italian newspapers, that Pietro Vimercati abandoned the violinist and didn't want to become a famous violin player, although he must have been pretty good because he was the primarius of the Scala in Milano. So he decided to abandon the violin and to become a professional, as his main profession, mandolinist. And he probably played on an instrument of his father at that time, and that was like this.
Ecco lo strumento di suo padre, che probabilmente è stato il primo mandolino cioè il modello che avrebbe utilizzato Vimercati in quel periodo.
And what is important on this instrument is, of course, that it was strung with double strings of gut, sheep gut from
Le
about.
corde doppie di budello.
Yeah, and
Sei corde doppie, sì.
yes, about sheeps of 6 months old were the best strings made in Roma and in Napoli, Italian.
Corde fatte da Roma-Napoli di budello di pecora.
So Vimercati first started and played in Italy, of course, in Italy.
Ha iniziato in Italia, certamente la sua carriera, la prima come si dice, fonte di un suo concerto del 1807 e non so se, quindi possiamo dire, e anche lui stesso lo dice poi nel 1843 in un'intervista: 36 anni or sono, ho iniziato la mia carriera mandolistica, quindi questo coincide, 1807 è la data di inizio della sua carriera concertistica da solista.
And here you see one of the first reviews about 1808 from the Roman newspaper.
Una delle prime recensioni.
These are other reviews, but you see he is already getting famous. And also what you see that both terms, mandolino and mandola, are used also in the northern of Italy. But it is really a matter of linguists, and that in the south they were talking more about mandolino, and in the north about mandola.
Quindi i due termini, mandola e mandolino, erano interscambiabili, dipende anche da quale regione dell'Italia venivano utilizzati per descrivere questo strumento che era così inconsueto nell'essere da concerto.
And in the last review, that's from Germany, you see that already in Germany they were notified about this special player. And Vimercati is said here that he was a fantastic player. He could do very many things on the instrument, but, and this is something he had to cope with and really struggle to make the instrument known and popular again, because the last lines in the review, they say that it isn't a concert instrument. It is not a concert instrument.
Ah, ok. Quindi anche lui durante tutta la sua carriera ha sempre dovuto lo strumento, non si finisce mai.
Yes, and the last few words were that the instrument was too poor. So they didn't think much about it. But already in this time, other people, not musicians, recognize the enormous talent of this mandolin player. This, for instance, this is a book about from a medical doctor, and he wrote a book about physics, and that playing a musical instrument makes you happy and makes you better from your disease, from your illness. And he goes all the instruments of the orchestra, and then he names the pianoforte, and he names the guitar, and he names the mandolino. And in the mandolino is the only time that he names the performer, and that's Vimercati.
Vimercati. Cioè pensate un po', questo dottore che scrive questa lista di tutti gli strumenti e degli eventuali problemi fisici che può causare un strumento, è l'unica volta che nomina un concertista di uno strumento è quando parla del mandolino, questo dottore, quindi in un trattato
we don't know much about him, but there is one paper, I discussed it with Carlo, and there is one paper that I found which mentions Vimercati's first journey outside of Italy. And that is this review that mentions that he is on that time, and of course I know the paper, the year of the paper and the months, that he is on traveling in Germany and France. And this is coming often back in the Italian reviews that he indeed visited France and Germany. But we don't know anything, no research I have found, maybe you have, but we have no research, only this one. So he must have been in Germany. And this was a really big task, because it didn't go by plane in that time, and it didn't go by car, it did go by this, you see? So with his strings and his instruments and his music.
And the family, so often with the family, he was traveling with the family. Ha avuto diversi figli, ha avuto 2 mogli e abbiamo notizie che lui viaggiasse con la famiglia, quindi sono un cavaliere.
For Vimercati led me to see when he was where in Italy and when he came back from this journey to Germany and to France. So I discovered now that it has been between this September 1812 and that he was back in Italy in 1830.
Okay.
And so we don't know. That is why it is in red dots, the line. But the places that he could have visited, that is the error.
Fantastic.
Maybe. But the time is absolutely the time that he was outside Italy. But he settled down after this big trip with the horses and so on. And then you see a review in Italian language that he is teaching the mandolino and the violino and the Chitarra Francesca. And the Chitarra Francesca is important to know this because he called it, as it was called in that time, Chitarra Francesca, so the French guitar. The French guitar was a 6-string guitar, just developed from the double-string guitar, 5 strings and double. So this was the going from double to single, but not in Italy it was, but he didn't say so. He said Francesco and Francese, and you see that it's single strung. It must have looked like a guitar which is seen here.
Sì, questo...
And that he is back in Italy, so it's 1812, 13, 14. The first reviews come that he's playing violin concertos. And these are violin concertos which are from his contemporaries, so he knew those people. Of course he was a violinist, so he knew it. He knew what was difficult on the violin, and he was a violin player, so he could play it on his violin. Nevertheless, he played it on this instrument with a totally different tuning. It was tuned in quarters, but he did play it. And I found evidence that he played in this tuning all his life, so he didn't tune it back to an instrument in fifths. No, he stayed true to the origin of the instrument, and he played it on an instrument tuned in quarters.
Questo è straordinario, lui suonava i concerti più importanti per violino, ad esempio il concerto di Rode, come ha citato in questo articolo, che se ascoltate era un concerto difficilissimo sul violino, e lui ovviamente avrebbe potuto suonarlo sul violino, era un grande violinista. Un mandolinistico moderno, cioè col mandolino siamo giustificati dal fatto che Pietro Vimercati era in contatto con questi compositori e suonava i loro concerti, e non ci sono notizie che fossero scontenti di questo, no?
Handwriting of Rode, Pierre Rode from Paris, you see that here you see notes which can't be played on this instrument. And that is a difficult thing, because he was a violin player who wanted to play in foreign countries. Foreign countries like Munich and Vienna, with music critics that could kill you if you don't play it. So Carlo said, note for note, this review I have in my thing, and I know you have it too, is very interesting, and we will come on that in a few minutes. But you see, this bottom line, you see that he's going up all the way to an high E, and it's not on his instrument. Now some reviews speak of that Vimercati arranged the music for his instrument, but you should not think that he lowered down the notes, because the critics would not allow it. Especially not because Carlo said he played it note for note. And this is from a Viennese review. So if a Viennese reviewer says note for note, it was note for note. Apparently, Vimercati was able to play it on his little mandolin, which only went to a G3 stripes. So that was the highest note normally, with 15 frets or 14, 12 to 15 frets. So if he would be able to play these high notes, he must have done something to this instrument. And now you get in the reviews, you get that the reviewer says that he has perfected the instrument. Yes? So he still had the original instrument, but he perfected it. Okay? He did something to it.
Sì.
But it's also in the Italian reviews that Vimercati is playing music which is composed for him. So not only music from contemporary violin composers, but he is also inspiring composers who are near and in his circle, friends. He's inspiring them to write concertos with full orchestra. He played with full orchestras, very remarkable with this little instrument. But apparently he knew how to, and it's possible because I know from personal experience, to play this instrument and to plop with your fingers and to project the tone above the orchestra. So you could be heard, the tiny mandolin could be heard. So he asked this Mr. Mayr to compose a concerto, and this he played in concerts. So this is why Vimercati is so important. We don't know much about him, but he is very important because he inspired, he got new music, he played music from the best violin composers with the most difficult, and yet we don't know anything about it. Isn't that curious?
Yes.
It's a complete forgotten.
È vero che è importantissimo, ne abbiamo già parlato prima, l'importanza di Vimercati travalica il periodo musicale, è sicuramente un testimonial fondamentale. Non solo suonava musica scritta, pensata già per il violino, ma anche ha ottenuto di farsi scrivere un concerto dei concerti, della musica specifica per il suo strumento. Lui stesso scriveva musica, e per adesso tutto questo è ancora da scoprire, non sappiamo dove sia. Simone Mayr, che è un importantissimo operista dell'Ottocento, ha scritto, c'è la cronaca che lui ha eseguito questo concerto scritto per mandolino, proprio da Simone Mayr.
Non-Italian, but understanding the importance. This new review from Napoli mentions that he is coming to play there on his new lyra. So it's new lyra. So he's coming to show his new lyra. This means that he has developed a new instrument which the Napolitans, with their Napolitan mandolins with steel strings and one gut top string, chanterelle, which is something new for them. They don't call it mandolin or mandolino. No, they call it lyra. That means that it is something different from their Napolitan instrument. But I think, I'm pretty sure, that he took the normal mandola, I'm still calling it mandola mandolino because that's what Vimercati called it. He took the old instrument and he made an instrument with more frets to be able to play the high notes on the violin. And there you see a double-strung instrument with gut strings, still with gut strings and double strings, but with one chanterelle. And that is this, but he did more.
Quindi questo potrebbe essere il modo in cui lui ha...
Because in the wave of the time, he had to compete with more volume. You know, he played together with other instruments, with orchestra and with pianoforte. So he developed an instrument with already Fuggetti. Fuggetti is a Frenchman, yes, who studied with Leone, Gabriel Leone, and Fuggetti already mentioned in his message that some don't prefer gut on the mandolino, but they prefer metal, and that is brass.
Quindi Fuggetti
mentioned this. They say he's playing on metal strings. Yes, especially in the next journey abroad, we hear, because this is not mentioned to us. We must have it from the reviews that he gets. And if there is a journalist who goes somewhat deeper, not only saying that he is great and that he's fantastic, but also that he played on certain strings or number of frets or whatever. So I knew of Fuggetti, who already said it in 1770 in his message for the mandolin. But I also found several instruments which were actually strung with strings from metal, from brass, yellow copper, and like harpsichord strings. And the top strings, which is very thin, probably was like the Neapolitan mandolin in that time, was from gut, but the rest was from metal.
Qui c'è una corda di budello.
In the bridge, you see how they solve the problem of the metal making cuts in the wood of your bridge. You see, so that there are little iron frets on the two highest strings, which are the thinnest. So that's how they cope with transferring the instrument from gut to metal and to make it a little bit louder. The new name for the instrument I did with red, Vimercati called it the Mandolino Inglese. That has to do with everything what comes from outside Italy or Holland is better than from Holland or probably your own country. So he called it Mandolino Inglese. This is a special reason also because there were the English piano, the English oboe. All those things had English on it. This has to do with the Industrial Revolution and with the new products in that time, is my idea.
Okay.
Not sure, but the second one we are very sure that he did it because from every town we visited, where the arrow is, I have reviews. So I know that he was there with the English mandolin, the Mandolino Inglese.
Questo è il secondo viaggio europeo che ha fatto.
Little halls where he played. He played with Schoberlecher, he was a very famous pianist.
Questo è un pianista con cui lui ha collaborato, è stato il suo pianista col quale condivideva i concerti alla pari, cioè erano due solisti alla pari, Schoberlecher.
Yes, and then he was back in Italy again, but after a few time, few months, he went back on the road and he visited the other direction of Europe. He visited England and he appeared in London, but also in the top of London, which I just could find on the top of London. And then he went back to Paris. But first I have to show a little thing where I can find it. In Paris, he played with this little guy on the piano, Franz Liszt. And Franz Liszt was about this old, behind the piano, and Vimercati, already older, was playing the mandolin together with him.
Questo è il dodicenne Franz.
Dotted line. He probably went by boat to Rotterdam. I don't think so. I think he went down to Oostende, in Belgium, and then to Paris. And in Paris, he didn't play with him, but he appeaed in the same concert as Hummel. So probably they talked together.
Voi conoscete Johann Nepomuk Hummel, che ha scritto un concerto per mandolino per...
And after Paris, he went back to Italy, preparing yet another concert tour, which I call the fourth concert tour. It's not very big, but it's in Central Europe. And here you see again playing in the 1827, he's playing concerts from violin players.
Ok, quindi siamo in chiusura, we are close.
That he goes from double strings when he is home in 1829, 1830. He goes from double strings because he's not satisfied with the metal strings. He got some of the reviews in the papers that were not favored about the sound of the instrument, and so he changed his strings when he was back in Italy. He changed his strings. Where I have it, I will find it, to single strings. But you see the number of frets is very interesting because he needs 21 frets. This was not so special because if you go and look to the guitars of Guadagnini from Turin, you see that the rosette of the guitar, sound hole, goes down, 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 down. And also Guadagnini also is giving his guitar 21 frets. It's exceptionally many frets. And this is interesting because here you see exactly 21 frets on when Vimercati died in 1815. That we have 40 years or 30 years, almost nothing, but in 1880 we find the first Mandolino Lombardos. This is exactly the name Vimercati gave to his instruments. The number of frets is exactly the same, 20 frets on these modern instruments, which I show you now. Yes?
Okay.
So this is right, and one final thing for you.
Okay.
You see it needs a book, but I will show you in a minute. Here is an excerpt of this Rode concerto with the high notes. And Sebastian is sitting there, he's with me. he's playing it. I play the little excerpt for you again, and you see what Vimercati was able to do on his instrument. So I shall show it one time, and then we must finish because of time. But you know, I can talk for all evening. I want to thank you very much, and I'm very happy to have been here. Thank you very much.
Grazie professor Timmerman, grazie mille. Allora, una cosa che vi voglio mostrare prima di chiudere è l'unico documento autografo che abbiamo di Vimercati, l'unica fonte musicale che abbiamo e che io ho trovato all'Accademia Filarmonica di Bologna, dove lui ha lasciato questo documento.